one, we are now recording, so you can call things to order.
Okay, it's 6:35. I am going to call this meeting to order of the SU meeting.
Does everybody have the agenda?
I'm going for it here.
I can pull it up here if you want me to, Bill.
Okay, I'm just.
It came Thursday, May 21, 9:17 in the morning.
Yeah, and I will tell you that the internet on my house right now seems slow, but we're going to try to make this happen.
Any changes, additions to the agenda?
I have one.
Hold on. What's today? The 26th. Okay.
Was that you, Elizabeth?
Yes, it is me.
Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I'd need to consult with David first. When do you think I should do the thing?
Yeah, I thought at the beginning would be good, especially since
Okay.
we're going to be in executive session
Right.
at the end. So I think that would be appropriate if you want to. We should do it right at the beginning, though, I think, right?
Okay, any other changes? Going once, going twice? Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see here.
This is going to involve some technology, so bear with her.
Bill, I could not, it's Angie. I could not get to my camera and my microphone in time. You're going once and I'm like, ah!
Okay, go ahead.
I think on the agenda, and I was trying to open up the agenda, is Consolidated Federal Program Grant. It is a brief overview, but I'm not sure much of it's changed because it's basically just employees. So I don't know if I really have much to report.
Okay, so you actually have a removal?
Yeah.
Amazing.
We like removals.
I thought you might.
Angie, you're the best. Okay.
All right, Elizabeth, it's all yours.
Okay. Here we go.
We're getting there. It's a little stuck, but we'll get there. Oh, we don't have sound. Do you have sound coming from your computer, Elizabeth?
Yeah. Can you guys not hear it? Okay.
No,
No.
you can't hear anything. I wonder if
Odd.
that could be
Huh.
I see Robin moving, but I don't hear anything.
Would you guys mind muting yourselves so that I can just, and then you can unmute yourselves just so I can. Ready? I'm going to try it again. But let me know if it doesn't work.
No, it's working, but no sound. That's the problem. But
Oh,
I don't know what could be creating that, but
that's strange.
yeah, you would think that it would, your sound would be on, but that's okay. It's worth a shot here. Want to try it again? Now, I don't know when you show your screen whether you can get sound out of that. I imagine you can, right?
Oops. Yeah.
We should have, I think you might have frozen up, Elizabeth. Did Elizabeth freeze up on us, or maybe everybody froze up?
I can still hear you, David. This is Robin.
Thank you. Thanks,
I'm
Robin.
not frozen.
Can you hear that?
Now, Elizabeth, yeah, now I can hear you. I don't know if I can hear the video. You going to try it again? What do you think? Or if you want to send it to me and I could try to play it. Your internet looks a little wonky, but. I think Elizabeth might be frozen. Robin, you're still with me, right?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
I think everyone else is still here. We're just trying to mute ourselves so that we can hear.
Yeah, I know. I think Elizabeth might be having a little trouble with her Wi-Fi, which probably to show that video is going to take a little bit of power coming in. But if you want to send me that video, Elizabeth, I can try it. I don't know if that'll work, but. Elizabeth, you still on?
It just said she dropped off the meeting.
Yeah, and I think part of it's her internet. Well, Bill, why don't we keep going because we can do that later on.
Yep. So any public comment not related to the agenda? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Minutes? Any changes to the agenda from last meeting?
I thought they were well written.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sean. Well, not thank you. I mean, I had nothing to do with it. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay.
Okay, could someone tell me when that email was sent? Because I don't see the minutes.
It was sent the 21st.
I've got them on the screen now. Are they showing up on the screen?
Yes.
Oh, no,
The agenda. Only the agenda.
Yeah. Okay.
No, the agenda, not the minutes. I'm sorry. Scott, are you looking for the agenda or the minutes?
The minutes.
They were sent out on the 21st.
I have April 27th.
But you don't
Okay,
need
maybe.
to approve them anyways, so.
I require a second, though.
Second.
Okay, Nancy has seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
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 I believe the ayes have it. Amy, we just approved the minutes.
Yeah, I just heard. Thank you.
Okay, it's all you.
Okay, let me just hold on just a moment Sorry.
Could I, Amy, with your permission, may I say something about the minutes?
Sure.
There was a lot in there, and it really they really covered a lot. And so whoever wrote these things did a really good job.
Great. Thanks. I'm not sure who did.
I don't know who did it. Amy, there couple additions. Elizabeth has a presentation. We skipped over that because of technical issues. We may go back to that. And number 4, consolidated federal program grant. That's been removed. There's really nothing to add to that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for filling in. Tuesdays turned into crazy days for me. We have curbside delivery at the library and it takes longer. Oh my gosh. Anyway.
I bet.
So we just did the minutes. Are we ready for financials?
I'm trying to find, I think we are. If I can find them.
So I emailed everybody that I just this morning found out that there was a board meeting this morning. This afternoon. I didn't realize that. No one had sent me an agenda. So I sent out what David had just put up here right now, which gives you a breakdown at the SU of where we are financially as of today. So the breakout for all of this is central office and special ed are both under the general fund. And the early childhood program has 2 facets. One is the regular ed side and one is the special ed side. So the central office is running pretty close to budget, which is fairly amazing because we've incurred some of the costs of the COVID close. But we're about, as you can see, we're about 11,000 in the black. The special education's running 468,000 in the red. Part of that is that the formula for the reimbursements is up in the air in terms of extraordinary costs. In terms of so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make a projection, which could be a lot less than what's showing up, a lot more than what's showing up here. So the revenue side could increase, bringing that deficit down, but I do believe we're going to end the year with a deficit. But again, I don't file the last report to the state until the school year ends, which is the end of June. And then they do the calculation back based on costs. So what I've added in there is what I project to be the revenue at the end of the year. Again, I could be wrong. And I do think that it will be a little bit better. So I would say we're probably in a $300,000, maybe $250,000 deficit. But as the year plays out, that probably will come down. Early childhood, yes?
Ed, before you move on from special education, is there one particular area that seems to be driving? Is it transportation or is it the outside service providers? Were you able to take a deep dive into that at all today?
Yeah, the transportation side is running around $62,000 or $63,000 over budget.
Okay.
And the wages is running $347,000 over.
Okay, say no more. That explains it. Yeah, that explains it.
And we've got the way we ended the year, well, when we closed on the 29th, I don't know, the 18th of March, we're carrying everybody as if they're, so that means everybody that was hired as of that date is getting paid their full salary till year end.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hiring at special ed between New Year's and March. A great deal of hiring. hiring.
Yeah.
And that's why it's reflected in that number. Early childhood regular ed, running in a deficit. We had a little bit more tuitions, meaning we pay for any student that's eligible or that's a resident to a eligible child program. And we estimated, I think, 93, and we've got about 96. So that's why that's a little over. And then early childhood special ed is under. And that's because when we went to get someone to direct the program, there was some savings in that salary. So the woman that's running the program now, whose name escapes me.
Jennifer Sprague.
Yes. Did it as an addendum to her contract rather than having a full-time position. So that's where we are.
Yeah, she was very generous. She decided to direct the program and teach, so she saved us some money in that regard, both with regular ed and special ed. But yeah, so that's kind of where we are now. But just to repeat, Ed, you're saying that special education, you don't really know until July what that last reimbursement will be, and obviously you don't close out the books till June 30th. So that 468,000 might go down some, it might not. Is that what you're saying?
Think of it this way: there are students out there right now that that continue to incur costs that could go across the $50,000 or the $60,000 threshold.
Yeah,
that would trigger a 90% reimbursement for the costs.
Yeah.
Special ed transportation. And that would mean we'd get a higher reimbursement rate for them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, Katie Ahern, our new director of student support services, the new Karen Woolsey, is on the hangout tonight, and certainly I won't put her on the spot, but I know she and I and Ed are going to meet here in the next week or so. Again, she's committed to really dig down deep and see what's going on here. One of the things that really seems to be a cost that runs out of control. Well, there's several that run out of control, including, staff salaries, but transportation is another big expense. And Ed, you said that's over by what, 60 some thousand?
Transportation is over $63,000.
Okay.
Yes, Amy, go ahead.
A question by both Beth and Scott. So this is special ed transportation. Where have they been going, or was that special ed transportation prior to the schools closing? Or are kids still being bused to programs?
Yeah, that's what's scary about this, Amy. This is David again. That really, most of our transportation, if not all of it, stopped as of, so I shudder to think where that number would be if we kept going through till June. So that's transportation up through March 17th, maybe with one or two little exceptions, but not much. And part of it is we're using a lot of private companies, contracted companies, private, parents, because these kids are in so many different types of placements and kind of placements. We also have some transportation addenda to the contracts with some of these outside schools like Kindle Farm, and I don't know about Granite Hill, but all of that really starts to add up. So that's one of the areas that Ed and Katie and I are committed to looking at, because it's a lot of money. Had that gone through till June 30th, it would have probably been double that. We would have been over by over $100,000. And by the way, expenses to date, I mean, I think Ed told me the other day, I don't know, what are our expenses to date in transportation? They're $500,000, right?
Yep.
$484,000.
$484,000. So you can see we're spending a lot of money transporting kids, and Katie's had some experience in other districts with alternative ways to transport kids, and we're going to investigate that. But yeah, these numbers scare me, and I'm looking at this first time with everybody tonight. Ed and I usually get a chance to go over this before the meeting. Today was a crazy day. We didn't get a chance to do that. So, again, I think everybody on this supervisory union board and every single board member And I know Katie, is committed to stop these $500,000 overages. I mean, the bleed has to stop somehow, and we're gonna try to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. So David, can you hear me? This is Beth. My video is not working for whatever reason right now.
No, I can hear you, Beth.
Okay. Yeah. So the travel. Okay, great. You explained that. Which, oh, by the way, right, this has been a known issue for a couple of years. So my assumption is we will do something this year about it, hopefully. The other question I have is, Ed, at this point in the year, I don't remember seeing such a negative balance, right? So that's not going to change. It might change a bit, but I don't remember seeing this last year jumping out as such a negative balance, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, last year was significant as well. I think at the end of the year, there was like a $600,000 deficit.
Okay. All right. I didn't recall that. So thank you. That doesn't make me feel better, but I get it.
No, it stands out in my mind, and yeah.
Right. And again, this goes back to what are we going to do differently within the SU? What can we do differently? Can we not build something ourselves?
Yeah, I think those are all excellent questions, Beth. And, I think that, the commitment is there to move forward. And I mean, I can't blame everything on Karen Woolsey. The buck stops on my desk. I just have not been able to figure out how to stop the bleed other than to get some different minds around the table to help with this, because I'm not a special ed expert. And,
Katie, what do you think?
I think the transportation aspect is a difficult one because we have to provide transportation, but I think we have some other options to do there. And Beth, you just said, how can we build our own? That is being explored. One of the things I talked about before is if we look at how we build better supports in the buildings, we keep kids in the building because we have the staff to work with them. And we're looking at a couple creative ways to do that with some students in one of our buildings. Can't give too much away because it's too identifying, but in a response to students that would elsewise be sent to another out-of-district placement. We do have a few kids coming back from out-of-district placements this year, which is really nice to hear. We're working with schools to bring students back in and starting those conversations earlier. And that's part of the push from some of the placements we have students in too. Realizing we need better measures to understand when students can successfully be reintegrated. So I think it's multifaceted. I hadn't seen these numbers yet till tonight too. Yeah. So everybody has a sticker shock.
Yeah, and I guess my other question is, while I can appreciate, right, we've done a lot of hiring, and I can't remember, Ed, what was the date you said from? Because, I mean, if we did a lot of hiring between January and March, I wouldn't assume it would be hitting it that substantially, right? It's not a hiring issue. It's a forecast, right? That we're not forecasting this, and then we're not really understanding where our kids are at and what needs they have.
Right. And a lot of our hiring.
Yeah.
A lot of our hiring in that time period was for paraprofessionals who had resigned. We've had this sort of cyclical issue, but yeah, I think the forecasting part is where I'm actually heading into now as we go into the season of writing grants.
I think Beth and everybody, there are three
the other thing that is driving this is the wage part of it is part of it. Another big part of it is out-of-state, out-of-district placements. Those tuitions are running about, I would say around $300,000 over budget. So when I told you it was wages, I misspoke. It should have been the tuition's more where it is. So the tuition to out-of-district placements is where it is. I apologize.
Yeah, and Ed, that's right. Why I keep asking, can't we find a solution on our own? Because then I do hear, and I'm not an expert in this space, I do hear there's other districts that have created a niche, right, whereby we pay them, right? We pay to have our kids go there. can we not create a niche, right, of some sort, so we can right, maybe we send kids out, but then we get a different group of kids in. I don't know the nuances here, but
what we did that one year, this is years ago now, and maybe Amy can remember. We had a program, strangely enough, called Foundations that was based out of Wethersfield. And it ran for about 3 years. And in the first year, we had to get enough people. We had to get people that staff it. And that was at a significant cost. And once we did that, it worked, because when you had the 9 students that we started with, it was cost effective. But the next year it went to like 5. And then the year after that, it went to 3.
Yeah.
So the problem was the in and out. And they were all our district kids, and special ed programs are so specialized that it's hard to get a program that.
And that's what I was going to say, is there are some aspects of providing services for kids that we have no control over their needs, but we have to provide for those needs. And some of it is unfortunately going to be out of school placement, even if it's SD Associates, which is right here in Windsor. We still have to provide transportation for those students or for those families that need those services. So,
yeah.
So I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How, first, with creating a program in district, I am an expert on that, and I'll tell you right now, it's not a silver bullet. The next thing is, how much of the transportation cost is driven by distance?
I think it's mixed. As David said earlier, we have a couple of schools that embed their transportation as part of the package of students going there, which in one school in particular, it actually helps us, Kindle Farm. But it is both schools, Kindle Farm and Granite Hill, are the two that provide transportation for most students if they can. It is driven by distance. I mean, there you have the furthest, Kindle Farm being at the furthest down in Townsend. Then we have multiple providers, both private providers, parent drivers, as well as existing routes for students who are in closer placements. And if we have students who can't be in a car with more than 1 or 2 other people, then we end up with multiple cars driving to the same place. I think the number of providers and the options we have in our area is pretty slim for considering if we're looking at like Butler or Pearson's, bigger companies that have a bigger capacity and maybe a more accessibility to work with other districts. We're relying on little individuals who are wonderful, but they're small operations. And
they're expensive.
And it is expensive.
Yeah.
We've worked with companies, Pearson's being one, and we have to send when students go further away. We'll end up piggybacking as much as we can with another district, so that we can reduce the costs. And those larger companies do that, and some of the smaller companies do too. But that's sometimes the luck of the draw of who you get that helps negotiate that. And we have to ask the right questions at the right time, and it could change mid-year because the kid changes. It is highly variable. So
I think at some point, and I can help with this on some level, is I think if we do a map of the programs and analyze the services they provide, I mean, there's a possibility to create a niche program within our district that would accept a certain niche of students from Hartford and Springfield, for example. Because I know at Hartford, it's even though we have our own collaboratives, there is still quite a bit of out-of-district placements because RAP and HARP do not serve those particular needs.
Right. As the person who used to do that in Hartford, I can, we still had, but probably a similar number per number of students, if you looked at percentages, who still went to places other than Hartford collaboratives.
Right.
Because it's finding the right program for particular students and capacity.
Right.
I think there's been talk. So, Bill, I think that around the area, there's been talk of trying to increase our collaborative opportunities, like we have ODP down in Springfield, the Occupational Development Program. They've definitely found a great niche there. And Woodstock has a program similar to the RRC, serving similar populations of students, the Regional Resource Center. And we are looking at that. Probably if we weren't in such uncertain times, we'd be looking at it a little bit harder and trying to make a plan for next year that would look a little more solidified. Right now, we're coming up with our next best option to keep some students in the district with the goal of growing a program amidst all this uncertainty. But for a few kids, it will save us some dollars and keep kids in our community. And so we're starting small with 2 or 3 kiddos and going from there. So we are doing it. It's just the timing isn't great.
But Ed's point about inconsistent numbers, the only way to solve that is to do it by creating a collaborative so that you have a much larger student population base, and then your numbers stay more consistent.
Yep.
I mean, RAP would not, in a hard, the RAP program would not be able to survive if it wasn't a collaborative.
Correct. Yes, fully agree.
So when we tried having our own program before and working a little bit collaboratively with others, part of the challenge with that was making sure that the environment where it was placed was receptive, because that turned into a huge challenge. And part of the reason that we dissolved the program was because the lack of positive reception.
Well, Amy, you're absolutely right. And what you would be looking at is probably a 3-year plan to create a collaborative program that would be sustainable for a long period of time. And so, which means you're not going to start a program next year as a collaborative program, but you're going to begin to plan, especially the location, what sort of niche it's going to do, and then even the 3rd year start doing outreach.
Right. And then be very firm with the location that this is where it's going to be. And we're all working on this together, and please don't, there were a number of challenges.
It can be a PR nightmare for both in school, for school staff and community. I've been on the receiving end of that. And I think that facility and staffing and making certain that well planned out, well thought out, but and at the same time trying to grow. It's like trying to grow the new plant and everybody growing their garden, making sure that you get enough water, sunlight, and a good balance of everything, and keep on the good side of it. But I think as we look forward to looking at our transportation, looking at what our strengths are as a district, would be helpful, especially in terms of our staffing that we would that have interests and specialties for growing it from within. That's part of the long-term plan. But it is a conversation we are having even within the southern regions of special ed administrators, trying to grow collaborative. So we have the opportunity, if we know what we're good at, then looking at another district for something else and being able to swap that out. But I agree, once things settle, so we know more about how things progress, it is the next frontier to hit. And you have staff that are very interested. So I think we'd have some receptive administrators and building people about this.
Thank you, Katie.
Any other questions on those financials? And, let's hope and pray they get better in the next couple of months. But it just never ceases to amaze me that this is where we are. But we've got to do something different. We keep doing the same thing we always did. We're just going to get what we always got. So we gotta figure something out here. And I think Katie's very receptive to taking a look at that. Anything else for Ed before he disappears into the night or dusk or whatever, wherever he's going? We good?
Sean here.
Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. On the question of whether we, if it would be useful to entertain a motion to form a committee to study this question of whether we would create a program within the district. I've heard some of the objections that are being raised, but I don't want to let the conversation get away without offering a motion to form such a committee if the chair would entertain it, feeling that it would be useful.
Yeah, I think.
Hang on a second. I think this is a topic that would come under the committee that is already formed about looking at the direction of the district as a whole. No, wait, that's the Mount of Scutney.
Yeah, that's not. And
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he jumped. Yeah.
Oh, mute themselves, please.
What'd you say, Amy?
I just wondering if a couple of people could mute themselves because there's serious echo. So if there was to be a committee, they would need to work very closely with administration, because administration is going to be reaching out to other districts to work together. It's not, I mean, we would approve the creation of such a collaborative program, but we are not necessarily we don't have all of the information we would need to say, okay, we're going to work with Woodstock, or let's gather all of these people. I think we would need to work very closely with administration to put something together. And if we were to have a committee, that is what I would recommend.
Yeah, I would.
David or Katie, correct me if I am wrong.
I would caution the board just to give Katie a little bit of time to figure out what's going on in terms of the whole program and where she could before they form a committee, because she really hasn't had a lot of time to re-examine everything. She's kind of jumped into this midstream, and I would say that let's look at the numbers at the end of the year. Let David, Kate, and I sit down and talk about how it all shook out, what are some of the outliers and what happened, and talk about what we might do to change things. I think one of the things I can say to Bill is that if we create a collaborative, we're already in a collaborative with Hartford. It could be as simple as negotiating with Hartford about that collaborative and finding out whether or not there's a way to get us a better rate. The big one is that I can see is foundations. The tuitions to foundations are huge. And I'm not a special educator, but there's tiers to a special education student. And some of the highest or the most needy students are going to foundations. So
Yeah.
I don't know how Kate would address that. And that's not a program that they have at Hartford. Hartford's program is less intense.
Amy, I agree with you 100%. I think this probably has to be something that Katie and the administration looks at and analyzes first and gather the data before anything happens.
Right, because it has to be based on current best practice, and even kind of looking ahead at trends in best practice and kind of the whole environment of special education and how we offer programs. And we as board members, we approve the programs, we don't create the programs, if that, and we can ask our administrators to go in that direction. I mean, we create a vision and we tell our administrators, this is where we want to go. If this works, if it makes sense, if it's financially responsible, if it's going to be something that will be sustainable. And I think only our administrators who have that experience can make those determinations.
Yeah, I just want to speak quickly to Sean's point, though, because, and Amy, I agree with you completely, and you too, Bill. But you know, I want to say, as your fearless leader, we come back year after year after year, and we say it's broke, we're going to fix it. It's broke, we're going to fix it. To Sean's point, I really think, you know, the budget season is going to be upon us soon. We do have a budget committee. I think last year we used the four. The board chairs, and I think maybe, yeah. But anyhow, I think it would behoove us this summer, once Katie gets her feet on the ground, and Ed and Katie and I have a chance to look at this in the interest of transparency, because if I were a board member and every year the superintendent was saying, it's broke, we're going to fix it. It's a little broke, we're going to fix it. $500,000, I'd be getting a little tired of that. And I'm not saying that's anybody's fault. All I'm saying is, I think a little more transparency, so that when we do peel the onion back, we've got a couple of board members, a few board members who can sort of peel it back with us, look at the recommendations we're making and say, does this make sense, right? Because you're the ones that have to stand up there at town meeting and say, $500,000 again this year, $500,000 last year, $500,000 maybe next year. Anybody got any questions? Okay, I'll sit down. It's not working really well, and it's driving me nuts. And so I think, to Amy's point and Ed's point, let's let Katie get her feet on the ground. She now has the budget in hand, and she's had a little time to look it over. I think then we can maybe talk about what Sean said and putting a little because I don't want to wait till October or November when we're in the middle of budget season and we say, oops, you know, that's not going to be good either. So right. I think we can find a hybrid in there somewhere, and maybe over the summer, you know, late June, July, once Katie's got a handle on it, to maybe invite a few folks in to really take a look at it with us, not as in terms of expertise, but just, do you think this makes sense? Are you willing to support this at the board level? You know, and that would be with transportation, staffing, and our own, looking at our own potential for placements and keeping kids closer to home. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Really quick, Amy, real quick, but sort of a point in which Ed said, and I was going to bring this up, but you know, I have to agree with Ed on his, in some ways. I think Hartford is underutilized for those programs, and I say that because I know all the numbers. I know how many students are in each program, and I know there's no way to switch the IEPs and move and so forth, and each program is different. But with a program that close, and they have a new building that's opening up next year, and I don't know how that's going to affect things, but that could be something to look at. I was not aware that foundations was that expensive.
Well, so and each program has its own characters, and with the level of specialization, Bill, I think we do start close and move our way out, and numbers and attendance or sort of capacity comes to mind. To hit on just one thing, I think our driving force, or at least in my belief system, is students stay in their community schools. And that's one of the things that I keep hearing from principals. And as we're looking at this particular situation of having students go elsewhere, is how do we build it? And there is a group of individuals from the ground up of teachers and buildings to look at this. Plus, they also know the population of students and what they need the best. And we're starting with looking at student needs and talking to the teachers that are working with them and with administration. So I think I welcome the larger conversation as we move forward with this. And get a handle on everything and all the rest of the fun stuff that gets to come. But it is a priority, and that's even conversations we've already had with families of how do we do this. And so I welcome it to keep coming. But Bill, I'd find it be interesting to sit down and look at some of the criteria we have to go through. They're painstaking decisions we make each time we have to do an out of district placement. It ends up being very complicated.
I know.
But
great.
Very, very politically put.
Anything else for Ed? Sounds like we're good.
Okay.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Katie, for more explanation, and also Bill with your insight. And Sean, I think to your point, we do need to kind of set the vision of what can we do within our boundaries. What can our administrators, what can our teachers do? So something of further conversation for sure. So thank you. Moving on, we have number 2, probably painful, direction from AOE and the governor, and our COVID update. David?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm still working on the technology problem with Elizabeth's little video at the beginning. I've got Larry on the phone, so just give me 1 second. It may not be possible to run it this way, but I'm talking with him now. Did somebody have a question? I'm sorry.
Well, we've moved on to item number 2, direction from AOE and governor and the COVID update.
Okay. Do you want to move? Let me see. It's only going to take me 2 seconds with Larry, but what's the next item on the agenda? Is it probably
Update on resolutions?
What is it?
Update on resolutions.
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Amy, and let me keep going here with Larry?
Sure.
Okay, and then I'll come back. Just
sure.
This is high tech stuff. Hold on.
Yes, it is. So I don't really have anything to add. No one approached me on resolutions. We do have until July 1st. So if someone wants to contact me, we can talk about resolutions. If anyone has questions. This has to do with Vermont School Board Association and how we want to help direct the work of Vermont School Board Association in how they represent the all of the school boards in the state. Along those lines, there will soon be a survey that goes out to all school board members in districts that are members of Vermont School Board Association, as well as some who dropped out in this last year. And it's kind of most of the questions are asking how much school board members are aware of the services provided by Vermont School Board Association, and just kind of thoughts and what are the needs of school board members across the state. What can VSBA do better? And what are we doing well? What can be done better? That sort of thing. So if anyone has any questions, you feel free to email me, call me, whatever. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. So it's going out to you're the member that's getting the survey. Is that right?
No, every single school board member across the state is going to get a survey.
Even though it's only SUs that are members?
Yes, because we want the VSBA board wants feedback from every single school board member of every district that is a member of Vermont School Board Association to see how we're doing in meeting the needs, perceived needs, etc., of the districts across the state.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Now we can go back to COVID. I will tell you, Elizabeth's on the line, that technology is not flawless. And what Larry is telling me is that what we're trying to do, Elizabeth, is not going to work. The way to do this would be to send everybody the link. You can't pick up sound in the Hangout. That's why you can do PowerPoints, but you're not going to pick up the sound. So we
Well, good. I'm so glad to know that, David, because I thought it was me.
No, not your fault. So what you could do, Elizabeth, because I know you've got really nothing to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes, but if you could send that link to everybody, and then what we could do is we could all watch it together on our own computers. So just, if you don't mind emailing that link to everybody on this call, can you do that or no?
Yeah, I'll give it a try.
All right, good. So Elizabeth has her assignment for the next 10 minutes. It shouldn't take that long. Yeah, we just wanted to let everybody know that, we wanted to do a little tribute to Diane because Diane's been with us for a long time, and she certainly held me together for a long time in that office. And so a few of the board members and myself wanted to say a couple of things to Diane. So we'll stop. Once everybody's got the link, we'll stop and we can all just watch it on our own, turn off our microphones, and then you'll get to see it, including Diane. You'll get to see it, Diane, and we can thank you certainly for your years of service. Elizabeth put some time into this, and thanks to all the board members who did make statements to Diane. And then that can be your keepsake. Just put it in your drive, Diane, and whenever you're feeling upbeat and you want to get depressed, just put that video on, and life will be good. So so that said, do you want to go back to COVID-19 update and all of that stuff?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. So we get I want to get back to, yeah. So, we get probably an email every hour from one agency or another about what's been updated. Really, the focus lately has been on how this year is going to end, mostly in terms of what's permissible for ceremonies, what's not permissible for ceremonies, what can high school graduations look like, what can't they look like. And some of that comes out of the governor's office and some of that comes out of the AOE. So we've been working hard with the administrators, and believe me, this isn't easy. And I know all of you have been patient with this. Some of you have 8th graders and maybe 12th graders, and it's just not simple. But I really think that we've got that worked out now. I think the ceremonies in each of the buildings in each of the towns will be fine. I think our graduation at Windsor High School will work out really well, and they are within the guidance and restrictions. And part of it is that those restrictions change sometimes by the day, if not by the week. We were on a call just about 2 weeks ago with the Secretary of Education, and at that time we were at no more than 10 gathering anywhere, and we said to the secretary, this is just an example. We said to the secretary, look, is this number going to stand? Because we've got to start getting serious about graduation plans. Yes, the number is not going to change. So we got our graduation plans in order. And as you know, last Friday or just last week, it moved to 25. Not that that's not going to affect any of us, but I mean, it's just a moving target. So eventually you have to pick a point in time and you have to say, this is what we're going to do. So that's kind of what we did. And I think the principals have done a great job getting things organized. The other piece that is on everybody's mind, and we'll talk more about this in executive session because it's got lots of implications in lots of different places, but it's really, what can happen this summer and then what can happen as we open up next year. And so this in terms of the summer, the guidance was, again, pretty scattered. It was changing, but more importantly, there was no assistance in, getting the protective kinds of equipment that you would need to make it happen, to be able to look at, especially in the special education world, what were some of those requirements. So what happened was the superintendents in the Southeast made a decision jointly that other than some, independent stuff that could go on if parents wanted to reach out to principals or if teachers wanted to reach out to certain kids, then we just wouldn't be in a position to run summer programming. So that's kind of the final decision. Then last but not least, and again, we'll talk more about this in executive session because it has staffing implication, is how we're going to open up next year. And I think there's two parts to how we're going to open up. One, and I think I said this in an email to somebody, but one is the mechanical and logistical end of it. In other words, will we be remote? Will we be in person? Or will we be in some kind of a hybrid, right? That's the logistical mechanical piece of it. And quite frankly, it is the public face of what we do. And so what the superintendents again decided to do and I think it's going to be a statewide effort, that tomorrow there are a couple of superintendents from each region, and I somehow wrangled my way on this committee that are going to get together tomorrow for a full day. We're going to start at 8 a.m. We're going to finish somewhere around 4:35 p.m. And we are going to try to put together a statewide recommendation for how schools should open next year, based on the CDC regulations, based on this a plan that Maryland, the state of Maryland just published, and also another document that was published by the AOE, because we just feel like we're not going to get good information until well in to the middle of the summer, and the middle of the summer is just going to be too late. And I think it was Sean, in one of Sean's emails, he said something like, this part of it, the mechanical and logistical part, and whether we're hybrid or in school or out of school, is bigger than this little district and this little SU. It's really important that we do this in bigger numbers, so that we're not doing one thing and then Springfield is doing another thing, and then South Burlington is doing another thing. That's when things are going to look really bad. So I should, after tomorrow, have a better idea of where this whole thing is headed. And that's from a mechanical, logistical, and public face of all of this. And secondly is the internal piece of this, which is the teaching and learning, whether we're in person or whether we're remote. What will that look like? Because we've learned a lot from this experience around what kids respond to, how to engage kids, how well they work with each other collaboratively, how well they can access the internet and some of the remote work that they've been asked to do. Sort of that whole notion of a flipped classroom where there's some instruction going on, but most of what they're learning is by exploring and doing and actually making it happen. I think, again, in an email today, I don't know if it went to everybody, but revisiting place-based and project-based curriculum, sometimes what's fondly called in the Mount Ascutney district, the mountain curriculum. getting kids out. So that's a teacher. That's a curriculum and instruction and platform and experience. And so we've been working the last week to get ready, because I think that should happen whether we go remote or whether we go in person. We need to, I think, start thinking through a lot of this. So Angie, and I don't know if you want to add to this, Angie's been leading an effort with the administrative team, and a group of teachers are going to be meeting on Friday to talk about how we can sort of invigorate that curriculum with integrity and kind of move this whole system forward. I mean, what we have to do, as we do all the time with our teachers, is you can't get too far out in front and you can't get too far behind, or you end up with anarchy or rebellion among the staff. So we're trying to go carefully with this, but I think the staff has learned some lessons about things that can work that maybe earlier they might have thought couldn't work. And so that's happening as we sit here tonight with Angie leading that. And Angie, did you want to add to that or no?
I just want to say we want to be able to plan based on what we've learned, and with a few new guidelines in place, like accountability and rigor, and how we make it more manageable for our teachers by what supports can we do better providing. That may be in the form of software, a learning management system that has the resources within it, so that teachers aren't collecting and uploading and scanning and doing all that sort of thing. So we had this nice opportunity at the end of the year to do professional development, and we're working really hard to come up with a plan that would give teachers the time that they need to plan. I think today we narrowed it down to, like, let's plan that first 6 weeks as if we're remote. And if we're in person, great. If we're partially in person, that we're planned for that too. If we're remote, we're planned for that too. So whatever we're looking at has to be able to work in person as well as remote.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are. And the last thing that I'll say is that and I just lost my train of thought, but it was around kind of putting that development package together. But I think the work that's moving forward is good. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I think what we're going to hear from superintendents tomorrow, and again, they're at one level, so then and part of it is going to be to bring that plan out to everybody, parents, community, board members, staff, because it's not like the superintendents can huddle together and decide how we're going to open. This is just a first slice tomorrow. But I think one of the things that really worries the superintendents is that what we don't want to have happen is the first week we're in person, the second week we're remote, then we're back in person, then we're remote, then we're in person, because that's going to be disruptive to families. It's going to be disruptive to kids. And I will tell you, we have a great example of how it's not about the virus, but it's about the perception of the virus can impact a district. And we had that just last week when we had a person who had no symptoms, who happened to go to one of the pop-up sites. I think I let everybody know this in an email, and they were found to be positive, and they were working in the lunch program. They hadn't had a lot of contact. Everybody was masked and everybody's taking their temperatures and everybody's doing what they got to do. I talked to 3 different departments at the Department of Health, and they said no need for quarantining, no need for further testing, just keep going. Matter of fact, they didn't even recommend that person quarantine their family or quarantine from their family. They said this virus is very overrated. Just relax, keep doing what you're doing. You're taking all the necessary precautions. And I will tell you, we tried to have a meeting that morning. It was Tuesday morning with the staff and tell them all is well. Everybody can relax. You couldn't have beat people to the door. They were out of there faster than you could say coronavirus. I mean, that's the bottom line. And what I'm afraid of is that community perception and that anxiety and that fear is what's going to drive what's going on next year. And I'm just so afraid that we're going to get into a position, we're going to be socially distanced, we're going to have our masks on, we'll have our cone of vulnerability over our heads, we'll be taking temperatures, and the first kid who has a 99.8, or the first kid or the first teacher who's diagnosed with the virus is going to just send everybody scurrying for the hills. And there are also going to be parents that no matter what we do, just won't send their kids to school. I've already had several emails saying, can we keep them home? And I tell them that, all about the homeschooling at the Agency of Ed and how they can do that. What I don't think our teachers will do is I don't think a first grade teacher is going to have one curriculum for remote and another curriculum for in person, and they're going to be teaching two groups of kids. That's not going to work either. So stay tuned. I'll have more, I think, after tomorrow in terms of some potential direction. And I would certainly welcome anybody on this call or hangout. Again, we don't have to take an hour on this, but if anybody has strong feelings one way or the other, or thoughts about how this could impact the fall, both in terms of perception, culture, and community, I would love to hear it.
David?
Sean?
Yeah, thank you. You identify the thing that I am thinking about a lot. I'm reading War and Peace during this time.
Nice.
And one of the things that comes out, you've just identified it, that we think that our leaders make the plans and that's what makes history. But in fact, it's just the individual people and the spirit of what they do. And I think we're in a moment of seeing a lot of that. And part of that comes out more because of the uncertainty. And you've mentioned that it's hard, that we kind of want to get some things nailed down because once everyone goes home, it's hard to fix. But at the same time, I think it's not to fear, but to embrace the fact that our people, our families are all going to do what they feel is best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to pose big problems for us if families of means decide that the experience isn't good enough. And if teachers can't offer both online, David, I think we're going to have to offer both things. I think it's going to have to be both, at least two modalities. I won't go on and on, but I think that people will, in a sense, our families will lead us because they'll do what they feel is best for their kids.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. I appreciate that. And the other piece we have to factor into this always, as we say, and I know you said that completely respectfully of what teachers may have to do in terms of creating both online and in person, that we're also going to have the Vermont NEA that's going to be breathing down our back. And we have unions that make statements about, I watch these wonderful clips from how Denmark did it, right? And well, Denmark's not dealing with some of the cultural issues and social issues and labor issues that we deal with in this country. So it's complex, but I completely agree with what you just said, Sean. We've got to figure out a way to make it as global and as esoteric as we can, with whatever teachers will agree. Elizabeth, you had your hand up.
I do. I hope that we can find a way to see this as an opportunity to open up the doors instead of trying to fit our situation into our old model. I think there's I think it's crass to say that this time brings us certain opportunities, but this time brings us certain opportunities to just throw some things away and bring some things in that we wouldn't have the excuse to do otherwise. And I think it's going to be a really hard fit to try to fit new modalities into the old format. I think you're going to have a much harder time doing that than just
making a new format.
Yeah.
Reinventing. Yeah. Well,
I thank you, Angie, for working with other administrators and with teachers to figure out how we can do that, working all of us together and seeing what has worked for students and what some of the larger challenges have been, and how we can better use technology and reach out to make sure that everyone has access, because Sean, what you brought up earlier is true. Not everyone has been able to just sit at home and do some of the work. Some people have had to go walking or driving to a Wi-Fi hub. So that's all part of the conversation that should be happening now and into mid-June when we start making all the plans. And I hope that, David, when you're talking with superintendents, that we do have something that is for the entire state, because it's happening in other areas in this state. People saying, well, those people are open, why aren't these people? So just to have a plan and have the support of everyone working together will be really helpful.
If I may, I also, the idea of the so-called mountain curriculum came from my trying to think about, to turn things around in the sense of trying to think about what we do, using what we do have. We have some small schools in our supervisory union. I think all of the schools in our supervisory union would qualify as the descriptor really small. Albert Bridge being tiny, but I think we can really use that as an advantage in this scenario. Yeah, I would think that across the state there would be other supervisory unions in the same boat, thinking about the very same thing. And also, I'd like to say that while we have families that do have lots of internet access and have the ability to hook up online and have high-speed thises and that's, and we do have families that don't have any of that, we also have families that don't necessarily want their kids on screens all day long. And I am one of those parents. I don't want my kids on the screens all day long. It's turning their brains to mush. They're not making, I mean, whatever they're gaining academically, they're kind of making losses too in that respect. So I just wanted to register that. I know
Right.
I'm not the only person who's in that boat.
To have a lesson plan or a project that they get about 10 minutes of, okay, this is what we're going to do. They can print out the PDF and then they go out and do it, and they take pictures of what they're doing, or they write in a journal and they upload that journal and that sort of thing, so that they're not just sitting watching a screen. And I've also had conversations with teachers that, depending on the age group, some of them might only be online for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So making sure that that 10 to 15 minutes is robust and meaningful, so that they can take it to an offline working on a project and understanding that they're still learning, and that learning can happen anywhere.
And but also to make use of the time to try to figure out a way to integrate things so that they can, if you're going to have it be experiential or have an experiential component, figure out how, I know teachers naturally do that, or some teachers naturally do that, but not all teachers naturally do.
Not all teachers naturally do that. That's exactly right. Nancy had her hand up.
Yes.
And then Nikki.
Yes, you cannot forget about the parents in this. It's not just the kids learning, it's the parents who, it's so frustrating. You're teaching kids in different age groups. People have met me in the post office, and they've just been tearing their hair out because they can't get an older child to do what they're supposed to do. It's not just the teachers, it's the parents that you would have to count on if you're going to be remote.
Yeah. Nikki, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I guess I kind of want to weigh in. I have to agree with Sean's comment, and I think it would be awful for teachers to have to create an online curriculum and an offline like an in-person curriculum. But I agree that I am 100% worried that our parents of means will pull their kids out, and that would dramatically change the dynamic in the whole SU themselves.
Yeah.
Long term.
Yeah.
So that's one concern I have. As far as the being on a computer-based platform, I happen to know of a 9-year-old who is on the screen for up to 3 hours a day, because when you're dealing with special education meetings, BI meetings, and then teacher meetings, and then students meeting themselves, you've got a 9-year-old who's staring at the screen for 3 hours just to meet the basics of what she's supposed to do in a day. And that is incredibly frustrating, and it creates its own behavioral problems later on in the day. And so we've got to not just think about like what the regular students are doing, but we're offering all these special services to students as well. And that's just added on to the regular core instruction work that those students are having to do. So I just wanted to kind of weigh in with that.
That's good. Anybody else want to weigh in? I just turn your mic on if you do.
Yeah, David, this is Beth, right? I think, right, when there's discussions around this, it would be helpful to differentiate between the high school age, I would say, versus, right, K through 6 or K through 8, because I do think, right, those high school students, right, are probably even more concerned about what the future holds for them if they're not in class or are in class or whatever it looks like. So I just think we need to be careful about treating all of the kids at the same kind of level, knowing that we do have a high school in the supervisory union that needs to have a different way of being addressed.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Beth. And we've talked about that because there are some other pressures on high school. I think sometimes they're unrealistic, and maybe even sometimes we create them ourselves. But, you know, when you get to the high school level, 9 through 12, I'm talking now, right? You've got, you know, issues around credit-bearing courses and, you know, getting ready for post-secondary education and a little bit different pressure. But I think the administrative team, and by the way, everything that's been said tonight, if all of you could just come work for us in September, we'd be all ready to go, because you're singing the song that the administrative team is singing. I could transpose this conversation to this morning when we met with the administrative team, and they're all saying exactly what you are all saying. Let's use this as an opportunity to just change the way we do what we do. So it's nice to hear that, because and again, I realize, you know, we're all in the same songbook. We might not be singing the exact same song, but I think that's what's important, that I think this board is a creative board. I think Nancy's right. It's also parent education and parent support, especially if we're remote. But I think the things you talked about are the very things we want to try to do. But think about it. We changed to a remote environment in 48 hours. Now we're going to ask teachers in a few days at the end of the year to change to a completely different way of looking at curriculum. So I would say, you know, just hang in there with us. Maybe every day take a moment of silence for us, because I don't know how that's going to play out. You know, people tend to do what they're most comfortable doing, and we're going to have to push this. But I know the administrative team, Angie's committed to it. We've been talking about this for a long time in terms of project-based learning, transdisciplinary curriculum, moving to a more integrated approach. So, you know, letting go of a few things, you know, all that specific content that everybody feels they got to get through, and really talk about how can we how can we weave that in? So I think everything you've said tonight is exactly what we want to try to do. We've just got to be able to get our teacher leaders to kind of agree with that. Angie?
I do want to say that we're mindful also of the fact that whatever we do cannot be for this situation only. It has to be rooted in where we're going, in using our portrait of the graduate, using the work that we've already been doing on proficiencies and learning targets, because we don't want to stretch, and then when we're back into in-person and business as usual, have it go back to what it was like before, which is the human tendency, right? So if we keep mindful of what our aim was, ground this in our portrait of a graduate, then I think that the work that we do now is going to pay off in the long run and make school better for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to remind everybody one more time that the work that the superintendents statewide are going to do, and much more around the mechanical and soft opening and the public face, I think a lot of this curriculum work will be specific to individual districts. Not everybody is where we are. Not every district is as small as we are, because I agree with Elizabeth. We can take advantage of our size, right? And our building size. Could they do this in Burlington? Maybe. Could they do it in South Burlington? Maybe, maybe not. But I think we just got to look at this has got to be a little bit homegrown. So I don't expect the superintendents to sit around and decide what a project-based curriculum will look like. I think that's going to be our decision once we decide format for opening and how we're going to serve the needy, deal with the implicit bias, deal with all those issues of equity. That's the stuff I think we got to deal with first. Then Angie's kind of trying to move this toward the project-based piece, which I think we might be able to do it, because it can't be business as usual. And we don't, and Angie's absolutely right. We don't want to create a creative, remote, project-based curriculum. Then we get back to school, and then we're right back to, this is the reading block. This is the math block. This is when we do science. That's not how life works. Life is much more centered around questions, problems, issues, controversies, current events. And that's kind of what we'd like to do. Any other comments before we wrap this conversation? I know we've gotten really philosophical here, but any other comments?
Yes, unpopular as it may be, I just think it's real that we're going to end up doing both. We're going to end up doing so-called remote learning. I know some people don't like that term because the kids are not remote. They're always right there where their learning is. But some of it will be outside of school and some of it will be in. And if we just realize that, and however politically unpopular it is, to accept it, I think we'd be better off.
Yeah. Well said. Any other comments? I think we can. Beth, your microphone came back on.
No, just agree with Sean's statement.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Anybody else? Amy?
I want to thank Sean for his comments, that it's true. And I think that is part of what Angie was talking about or alluding to, is that we need to look at the project-based learning and take this situation and what we have gone through, because we can use this to go forward as opposed to going backward. When we get back to a classroom, it doesn't have to be strictly a classroom. I mean, there are ways of recreating how we help kids learn, and how the curriculum that we provide, the projects that we provide, the situations, so that kids can learn using what they have around them.
Well said.
So I also saw that Elizabeth sent us all a link to a YouTube video. So if everyone wants to mute their mic and listen to a YouTube video. How long is it, Elizabeth?
5 minutes, 7 minutes? What?
It's about 7 minutes, roughly 7.5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, 40 seconds, something like that.
Yeah.
So
There's
Let's
also a
do it.
link in I put a link in the comments too.
In the chat room, yeah. So let's mute our microphones and let's pay tribute to Diane. Okay, we all set?
okay.
Here we go.
my gosh, that was delightful. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you to everyone for putting that together. And Diane, we really do appreciate all that you've done for the SU and for all of our individual districts. We appreciate it, and we're going to miss you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody. I'm sitting here in tears.
We will definitely miss you. If anybody didn't get the clip, or I think everybody did, but if not, just let me know and we'll make sure we get it to you. So yeah, so that's great. All right, great. My wife was the camera person on my video, and I noticed it kind of swung over. We caught the Mary statue. It wasn't intended to be any kind of a religious ceremony, but I hope you know that was there, Diane, just for you. So I will miss you. I love you, and I will pray for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody has their TV on. I don't know who does, but okay. Are we good? Want to keep going?
Yes, and I think we're up to new hires.
Yes, and I think Katie's going to walk us through this. Katie, do you want to just kind of quickly go over the new hires that we have confirmed so far?
Okay, so we had the resignation letter from Karen Ammerman, and we also have another letter from Mary Beth Beck, who's at Heartland, and Karen is at Weathersfield. So those two came in the last month. And we had already, so the new hires I'm about to list are individuals that we started interviewing for back in February for vacant positions we still hadn't filled for next year, and replacements for individuals that have been hired as consultants on consulting, specifically our speech language pathologists. So it sounds lengthy, but it actually is filling positions. So we have in Windsor, Justin Osler, who will be a special educator. Hold on, Erica and Urquhart, who will also be a special educator, and Krista Cook. And those are filling in positions that either for a couple of paraprofessionals who have resigned, as well as a vacant special educator position. And Emily and Justin are actually already there as long-term substitutes, which is kind of cool that they're staying. In Weathersfield, Erica Euling is taking one of the special educator positions, and there's one other. Then that was replacing Tim Hebert, who is retiring from becoming a teacher, but will be staying on as a behavior interventionist in the district, which is, again, kind of nice that he's staying. At Heartland, we have Chloe Balch, who will be a special educator. And in our early childhood, we have, what is Fiona's last name? Her first name is Fiona, and I didn't write down her last name. And Diana Ingleson will be the speech language pathologist. Fiona is replacing Kelly Provost, who we never filled that position earlier this year. And district-wide, Kathy Mack is going to be serving as our LEA, we've had several part-time people doing it, and we've consolidated that position into one. And the last person is Annie Rowe, who is coming on as another school psychologist. We had put in our budget to expand our capabilities to do our in-house assessment. Another way of trying to streamline things and work with our current school psychologist, Leota, because Leota and this other, and Annie can then be more an integral part of the school and not just run through evaluations. We're trying to be more mindful of that and bring their trauma experience to the whole population. So we'll be able to do a better job with that in our psychological services next year. So I think that's everybody.
That's good. Yeah, and all as Katie said, all of these are replacement positions, and in a lot of cases, we've lost a lot of support staff, paraprofessionals, and we're not replacing them right now. We're sort of trying to move toward a new model where we'll have more capacity with professionals to move forward. I think the good news is, both in terms of speech language pathology and special educators, we've had applicants. I mean, I remember last year at this time, we didn't. So I mean, that's been that. So we could have a motion to hire those people tonight if you want to do that. And we could do it as a batch, I think.
So I will take a motion to approve the appointment of the people who were just listed by Katie.
I'll make that motion. Ms. Nikki.
Second.
I'll second.
And I could provide an actual list with everyone's last name with it too. I realized as I was pulling this together tonight, making sure who would sign their contract or their letters of intent. That I just used first names and I wrote it down. So I can send a list. So
Yeah, that would be great, Katie. Thank you.
Yep.
That can be part of the minutes as well. So very helpful. Thanks.
That's good. And Robin, I don't know, Robin, you might want to go to mute. I think that noise might be coming from your phone. Is that possible? Yeah, there you go.
Yep. Sorry about that.
We got you.
So there's been a motion. There's been a second. All those in favor of approving the appointments as listed by Katie?
Aye.
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 Are there any? All those opposed? Okay, none in opposition. So thank you very much. I will take a motion to accept the resignations of Karen Ammerman and Mary Beth Beck, I think the last name was.
Correct.
With regret and wishing them well.
So moved.
Nancy?
Yep.
Is there a second?
Nikki can second.
Nikki seconded.
You were close, Chris. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 And opposed? None? Okay, thank you.
And I would, Katie, when you email out the names and last names, it'll be good for Diane to get a copy of that too, so she can include it in the minutes.
Okay, we are up to around the SU. If we could do this quickly, because we will be going into executive session, which I believe will probably be a little bit longer than usual.
Oh,
so, how about we start with Heartland?
I don't have any huge updates from Heartland. We are sad that we're losing some long-term teachers, and I know Christine is looking to hire some of those positions. So that's kind of where we are. That's all I got.
Great, I know, it's like, okay, what's new? Not much. Let's see. How about in Weathersfield, Sean?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, yeah, kind of same old stuff. Mount Scottney School District. If you drive through Windsor, you will see photos around town of all of our graduating seniors. It's pretty exciting. Unfortunately, we won't all be gathering down on the soccer and yeah, whatever. Oh no, I guess it's the football field. I don't know, whichever field. We have gathered on these last few years.
Yeah, football. That's the same difference.
Yeah, the football field. And it's it's sad, but at the same time, we know that our seniors they've put a lot of work. They're doing, they're going to be fine. And we wish them all well. Elizabeth, do you have anything to add? Or Bill?
Bupkis. Bupkis. Bupkis.
Bupkis, bupkis. Bill looks like he's got nothing. Nothing.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was a quick around the SU.
You know what? Just one thing quickly. I think that would be fun is that a lot of you are doing virtual graduations this year, and maybe what we'll make sure of is that every board member gets a copy of every other school's virtual graduation. I think that would be fun to do. So we'll make sure that happens. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So we are up to setting the agenda for our next meeting. And when is that next meeting? In June.
Let's look. It's in June. And it would be June 29th.
Okay. So let's see. David, if you could let us know kind of the mechanical, logistical decisions.
Yeah.
Although I think we will also be hearing them if anyone tunes in to the governor's press conferences on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Fridays is usually the big one that kind of sets the tone of what is going to happen in the following weeks. I would imagine VSBA will be sending out announcements as well, but if we could have that conversation, that'd be great, David.
That sounds good.
Yeah, can we stop and go back to the date real quick?
Yeah, I've got a question too.
Diane added a date in my calendar for the June 22nd. Not the 29th?
Is it usually the fourth Monday or the?
Yeah, it says monthly on the fourth Monday.
Yeah, as opposed to the last Monday. Yep.
That would be the fourth Monday.
Yep.
Yeah. So June 22nd now?
June 22nd. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I've got a question. Are we going to do that meeting remotely or in person or a blend or have it outside or?
I would say at this point, let's have it remotely and we can update depending on kind of how things go.
Amy, I have one question about the date.
Yes.
And David, please chime in. Is there any reason, I know a lot can happen in a month, and is there anything, David, that you know of, or Amy, that you know of, that would warrant our scheduling a meeting sooner in order to accomplish or forward anything that was time sensitive between now and the end of school?
I think we could, we could always quickly call a special meeting if we needed to. I don't think so right now. I think it's going to be pretty busy the next few weeks. I think we'll be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if something does come up, like David said, a special meeting, our individual boards are also meeting on the Mondays prior to our meeting. So it could be that we will all join together for one of your meetings. So kind of stay posted, keep an eye on your email, kind of keep an ear out for the governor's press conferences, and we will go from there. We always have to be ready for anything.
Thank you. I would welcome us being as dynamic as we can be.
Certainly. Yep.
Well, it's the 20,
It's open.
22nd. Okay. I'm sending out the invite now, just so we all got it.
Okay. Excellent. So let's see what else. Definitely financials. So we kind of have an idea. I think
Yeah.
we need to keep a pretty close eye on that.
Yeah. And maybe too, Katie and I and Ed will have some time to report out some of what we've dug into.
And if we could have Angie report on how that last week or 2 weeks of professional development went and kind of give us a taste of how our administrators and teachers were feeling, kind of how that last few weeks, kind of a culmination of from March until the end of school.
Sounds good. Angie, will there be anything with the CFP we'll need to do? Angie's finding her mic.
There might be.
Yeah, we might want to put Consolidated Federal Programs Grant.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe even the Idea B grant, but just, the grant reports would be good.
Okay.
I think that's going to be a full agenda.
I think so too. And like Sean was saying, we don't know what is going to be happening between now and then. The world is changing, and with things opening up, and there's always the chance that we might have to do a little backtracking. We being the entire state of what's being opened up and what is kind of closing down again because of resurgence, who knows? So we just need to be kind of play it by ear, be ready, keep our ears and eyes to our email, and just be open.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I will take a motion to go into executive session, Title I, Section 313, for personnel issues and negotiations.
Correct.
Is there a second? Or I'll take that motion.
I'll move. Colleen.
Colleen Spence moved.
I'll second it.
Scott seconded.
Okay, and let's see. So Diane gets to leave. Diane, thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll miss you.
Thank you, Diane.
Diane.
And let's see. Do we
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
And Angie and Katie do not need to hang out either. We're all
Love you, Diane.
Okay. So
bye, Angie. Bye, Katie.
Bye, Katie.
So we'll just assume that was unanimous, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. I'm going to check the list just to make sure we have just board members in here, and it looks like that's the case. And we have 14 of the, what do we have when we're all together? We have 3, 12. So the 14 are coming from me. Where's the other one? That's the 4. Why do we have 14 in here? Hold on. 6 and 6 are 12. I make 13.
Sarah.
Sarah Stewart Taylor isn't.
I see. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. I think we lost some of our other board members, but Sarah hung in there diligently. So Sarah is still on. And by the way, we want all the board members who were on tonight to stay in here. Yeah. So Sarah's not on the SU board. So I think we've got it.
Remember to stop recording.
Yeah, you have to stop recording.
Oh, nice. That was a good catch. Who caught that?
Nancy.
Was that Nancy?
Yes.
Nancy. Okay. And all right. And for some reason,
Sarah,
stop
stay.
recording.
And Beth, you can stay too.